Welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast, the resource for transitional and experienced genealogists who want to create a successful business. I'm your host, Marianne Pierre-Louis. Here you'll learn from professionals all around the world who work in the field of genealogy. Are you ready to get started? Then let's get going. This podcast is sponsored in part by the Association of Professional Genealogists. You can find out more about them at www.apgen.org. Welcome to episode 20 of the Genealogy Professional Podcast. In this episode, we head to Vermont to talk to genealogist Cathi Desmarais. During this interview, we get into a whole variety of topics, such as military repatriation cases. What are they? And why does Cathi love doing them so much? We touch on forensic genealogy. We also dig into how your colleagues and reaching out to them can help in overcoming obstacles. Cathi gives us some insight into working with subcontractors. Cathi also describes to us how she set goals for her education, which also included going for certification and getting a CG. Now, before we get started, I want to just let you know that I'll be doing a webinar on Thursday, April 17th for the Association of Professional Genealogists. The webinar is called Careers in Genealogy, House Historian. And in this webinar, I'll be providing you with all the information you need to decide whether you want to think about becoming a house historian yourself. And that can take two forms. You can become a full-time house historian like I did, or you can just use house histories as an additional service to your genealogy business. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can head over to my Facebook page to find a registration link. If you go to facebook.com/Marianne Pierre-Louis with no hyphen, you will, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll find a link to that webinar. The webinar is going to happen at 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, Thursday, April 17th. The webinar is live and free for anyone to attend, even if you're not a member of APG. However, if you can't attend the webinar live, the replay is only available for members, and it will be found in the members-only area. So if you're an APG member already and you can't listen to it at that time, don't worry about it. You can catch it later in the archives. If you aren't an APG member and you really want to hear that topic, then just try to make the effort that you can to listen live. All right, with that, let's head on over to our interview with Cathi Desmarais. Cathi, welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast.
Thank you for asking me to be here, Marion.
Let's get started by having you tell us about yourself and give us an overview of your genealogy business.
I'm a board-certified professional genealogist. I'm the owner of Stonehouse Historical Research, which is based in Burlington, Vermont. And I established the business part-time about 2009, and it grew to a full-time business in 2012. And my work is just about evenly divided between forensic research and family history clients. And my forensic research consists of military repatriation work and work for attorneys and title insurance companies. And the family history research focuses on ancestors in Ireland and Vermont.
What made you decide to become a genealogy professional?
Well, I had a successful career doing something I loved, and I wanted to explore a new career, making a living doing something else I was passionate about. I think it was the challenge of running my own business that really appealed to me. I didn't want to do just one thing for my entire life. I wanted to have the opportunity to explore another career.
Most people come to genealogy from another profession, and you've already hinted that you had a full-blown profession. What were you doing before you became a genealogy professional? And was it just one thing that you did primarily, or did you have other jobs before that?
I've been lucky to do a couple different things. My main career was I was an early childhood special education teacher and also a program administrator for 30 years. I taught in inclusive settings with both disabled children and typically developing kids. My passion, though, is really working with children with severe and multiple disabilities. And I loved that career, as I said, but I retired early so that I could have a second career. But I also did a few other things along the way. I taught childbirth classes for several years and did labor support for couples giving birth, both at home and in hospitals. And I've had some volunteer positions judging figure skating. And I just think life is short and we should try out and try to experience as many things as we can.
I have a sort of random question here. How do you feel about client communication? How do you rate your own client communication?
I think client communication is really important. I think that's one of the reasons that I've been able to maintain a waiting list of clients is I focus on the relationship. And when a client first contacts me, I don't just immediately send them my client agreement and my rate sheet, and I try to get to know them a little bit. What are they hoping to learn? Tell me about your family. Tell me about your research. And we exchange a couple emails back and forth and establish a little bit of a relationship. And then we talk, if they decide this is something they want to explore with me, then we talk about my business policies and rates and those sort of things. So I think client communication is just really important. And maybe I've learned some of that by working with parents and families so long through being a teacher and being a childbirth educator. One of the common threads in all those things is that I was working with families.
Yeah, that's exactly the reason I asked you. Based on what you said, all of your previous jobs and careers have been very nurturing, very face-to-face and interactive with people. And so I was curious to see how you felt about that client communication, because I would think that that piece of it would be very natural for you because you've dealt with people who were confronting issues, whether they were good issues or bad issues. You know, labor and pregnancy is good at times, and then there's the fear at birth. So you're seeing people in all different states. And so I'm guessing that over the year you've really developed some good strategies for communicating with people. So
I think one of the common threads is strengthening families, too, because I believe in how important families are, and each one of my careers has really been about strengthening families.
So tell me, when you were working with these couples who were having babies, did you encourage any of them to start recording their family history?
Well, I wasn't that involved in genealogy back then, so probably not, but I think I would today.
What did you do to prepare yourself to become a genealogy professional, both from an educational point of view and a business skill point of view?
I love education, and I love learning and taking classes. I'm sort of a professional student, so I tried to take advantage of every educational opportunity that I could. And for the forensic work I do, it was really all about networking and asking questions and asking for help. And now aspiring forensic genealogists can attend the Forensic Genealogy Institute. They can join the Council for the Advancement of Forensic Genealogy and join the mentor program, but neither of those were options when I was starting out. So I mostly just networked. And for learning about Irish research, I just read everything I could get my hands on. I took Donna Moody's research trip to Ireland to get hands-on experience using the various repositories in Ireland, because I think the best way to learn about something is just to do it. So I decided my money was better invested in the trip than in sitting in a classroom. But I also took David Rencher's Irish Land Records course at the British Institute, and that was incredibly invaluable too.
And what about certification as a path to genealogy education?
That was really important to me, too, because I wanted to make sure that my work measured up to standards, and I wanted to see if I could pass peer review. That was really important to me. So in the beginning, I took the ProGen. I was in the first ProGen group, and I created an educational plan as part of that and sort of a roadmap for myself. And part of that educational plan was learning enough so that I felt like I was ready to start working on my portfolio and eventually submitting it for certification.
And did you do anything to prepare yourself from a business point of view?
Well, the ProGen course was the biggest thing I did to prepare myself for the business. I was able to learn how to write a business plan and set my rates and some of those other things. And I was able to learn it not alone, but with a small group, supportive peer group, where we really learned together. And I learned from my peers. So that was probably the most important thing I've done. But I've also done a little bit of reading in some books aimed at starting businesses. I've explored the Small Business Association website, but that's something I need to focus on more. That's one of the areas I need to learn more about.
Can you tell me, do you operate as a sole proprietor or an LLC or something else?
I do operate as a sole proprietor. I'm starting to expand my business a little bit and do some teamwork and bring in some other researchers to help me in my business, but basically I'm a sole proprietor at this point. I'm exploring the possibility of possibly becoming an LLC.
I have, and for your sake and for our audience's sake, I have just started recently to ask that question of our genealogy guests because I'm curious, and I think it would be very enlightening for everyone to see what step people have actually taken business-wise in their business. So that's why I asked that.
That was probably my weakest area, was my business skills. I had no bookkeeping experience whatsoever, and still accounting is like a foreign language to me. I'm really good at math, so I don't want to sound like, the blonde girl who isn't good at math, but there's something about double entry accounting that just doesn't make sense to me. And when I was trying out I kind of outgrew the spreadsheets I was using and wanted to get into some of the accounting programs, but they just overwhelmed me. And I'm trying out a little bit simpler program right now, and either I'll eventually master this or I'll find it's something that I really need to hire out and find someone else to do for me.
I know that Caroline Gurney, in episode number 3, had mentioned an online software program that she uses, and it also has an American version as well.
I want to check that out.
Yeah, it might be worth checking out.
I'm experimenting with one called Outright right now, which is it's just been purchased by GoDaddy. But a couple of my friends recommended Outright, and it does seem to be a little simpler and a little more intuitive.
I have just purchased a thing called QuickBooks, and I am not even close to you with liking numbers, but I'm married to an accountant, so...
Oh, you're lucky.
I've got on-site support, so we're working together hand in hand to try and make
QuickBooks
that happen.
And Account Edge were just a little bit over my head.
Mm-hmm.
Hate to admit that.
I'm being forced to do it. I hate to admit that, but I didn't have a choice. What skills did you bring to your business when you started, and how have they helped you?
Well, I think my previous career really did help in other ways besides my experience working with families. I think that being a special educator of children with the most challenging needs teaches you to be a problem solver. They don't learn the same way, or they don't eat or move or communicate or behave in typical ways. So I always had to look for creative ways to get around obstacles. And when one way didn't work, I had to try another way and then try another way. And I learned to be persistent and creative in problem solving. And I think that really helps me now to keep looking at things from different angles and not give up when I can't solve a problem. And I also learned to pay attention to the smallest details, to analyze data that I took about my children, and to learn to write a lot of plans and a lot of reports, because the paperwork in special education is really crazy. And as an program administrator, I learned to manage big programs. I served on local and statewide boards, and I just learned to keep a lot of balls up in the air, and that's been really helpful in running a business. And teachers are really good at collaborating. I've really noticed that among my genealogy colleagues who were former teachers, that they're really skilled at collaborating with other people, because we have to work with parents and other teachers and therapists and medical professionals, especially when you're in special ed. And it's great to work on projects with people that have a teaching background. Some genealogists who don't have that background tend to work more alone.
What was the hardest part of starting a genealogy business?
Ironically, starting out was probably the easiest part of it. I already had a regular paycheck coming in, so as genealogy work started to trickle in, it was just exciting and exhilarating. But I think the hardest part came when I reached a point where I was starting to get a lot of work and I still had my other job, and it took a lot of discipline and a lot of long hours to really do right by both jobs. And I'd find myself, I'd have to check my business email at 6 a.m. before leaving for school, and I'd be working on client work every evening and all day on the weekends and school breaks. And, at one point I realized I hadn't taken a day off from either job in, months and months. And I had to keep reminding myself that people who start their own businesses, like restaurants and stores and things like that. They put in really long hours and a lot of hard work to get them off the ground too. So that helped me from complaining so much. And I had to realize that starting this business was really no different than starting a restaurant or starting any other business. And it was about that point that I reached a point where I couldn't keep doing justice to both jobs, that both of them were just taking too many hours. And I made the decision to retire early from teaching and take a chance on being self-employed. And after that point, it started getting a little easier again. But that was the hardest point when I was really doing both jobs full-time.
Can you share a specific story of an obstacle or a challenge that you encountered early in your career and how you worked around it?
Well, in the beginning, I tended to bite off more than I could chew, which is a chronic problem for me. And I just had more enthusiasm than experience. And I remember the first 10-hour project I received. I was so excited that somebody actually wanted to trust me with paying for 10 hours worth of research. And I probably put 40 hours into that project. And I developed this beautiful notebook, and it had my report, and it had all sorts of photographs and document images. It covered several lines of the client's family. And why I ever thought I could do that in 10 hours, I have no idea. But experience is the best teacher, and, I didn't make that mistake again. I started getting more realistic about, what does a 5-hour project look like, a 10-hour, a 20-hour project. But it took some experience to get there. And I sort of did the same thing with my first forensic project. I was really excited to get it, but I didn't have the experience to know what I needed to do when I took the job. So I had to tap into my APG colleagues and ask for help and ask for advice. And every single one of them was so generous with their time, and they shared examples of reports and affidavits and different things with me. And that's why I try to pay that back now by helping other new forensic genealogists through the CAFG mentor program, because I would have given anything to have a resource like that when I was starting out.
So what you're saying is when you got that first forensic job, you really didn't have any idea, or you didn't have the resources at hand to complete it. And that's when you went out to all your colleagues.
Yeah, it's sort of like, how do you get experience if you don't have experience? Sometimes you have to just jump in and let the experience teach you. And that's why I was willing sometimes to put more hours into a project in the beginning, because I needed the experience.
So the takeaway from that is to reach out to your colleagues, even if you think you shouldn't do that or you're afraid to do that. You should do that and you'll be pleasantly surprised. That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I'm very indebted to several colleagues that have become friends now that helped me out in the beginning.
Tell us about that moment in your business when everything started to come together and you became really confident about where you were heading.
It doesn't seem like there was any one particular moment, but it seems more like there was a series of moments for me. In the beginning, when I was taking the ProGen class, I created the educational plan and the business plan, and it sort of dawned on me that now I had a roadmap and that maybe this idea of having a career in professional genealogy might really happen if I followed that map. And then I remember I worried about whether I would be as passionate about clients' families as I was about my own family research. And there was a moment when I solved the client's brick wall problem, and I realized that I was good at this, and it didn't matter if it was my own family or a client's family, that I could get just as excited about their work. And I guess then there was another moment when I found out that my BCG portfolio had passed, and I knew that my work met standards, and that was another moment that made me feel that things were coming together. I think it's a little bit analogous to you can't really see the whole path out in front of you, but you climb the first hill and then you see the next hill in front of you and then you climb that. And I just never would have guessed in the beginning that I would be running a full-time business, working for attorneys and the U.S. Army and so many amazing private clients who have shared their families and their family stories with me. And I just couldn't have imagined it all in the beginning.
And now you've grown so far that you're even using subcontractors, right?
Yeah, I'm just starting to do that. My client waiting list has been growing for a long time now. And, I have more work than I can handle. And at first I was really nervous about thinking about working with anyone else because I didn't like the idea of giving up any control over my own work. It goes out with my name on it. But I've been experimenting with a little bit of a different approach. I don't turn any work over to a subcontracting researcher, but I've brought I'm experimenting with bringing in a couple of researchers into my business to collaborate with me on client projects. And we work together on the project, and I've discovered that there's this sort of synergy that develops, and they think of things that I don't think of, and we bounce ideas off each other and kind of end up with a better product than either of us could have done on our own. And the client is getting the benefit of two researchers and two sets of eyes and two sets of experience. And the researchers that I'm working with are gaining experience because they're newer to the field. And I'm working through my waiting list faster. So I really feel like so far, it's been developing as a win-win situation for everybody. And I'm kind of excited about the possibilities that it might bring.
Can you give an example of how you might collaborate on a document together?
Well, the way I've been doing it is I've been putting the documents that the client might give me and my report format into a shared Dropbox folder with the researcher I'm collaborating with. And we talk about sort of who's going to do what and, the hours involved and some of that. And then the other researcher might start working on a couple of her tasks that she's decided on, and everything that she types into the research log, into the report, and then also into the summary section, she types in a red font. And everything that I'm doing in the report, I type in blue font. And when either of us opens up the report to work on it, we read what the other person has done, and we change the other person's font to a black font so that we each know when the other person has read what we've written. Okay, she changed it to black, so I know she's read what I wrote. We leave each other comment bubbles all the time, like, did you think of this? Or what about, do you think it's a good idea to request an obituary? Or how about doing this? Or we also leave notes within the body of the report and highlight them in yellow so they stand out to each other. And we have little conversations back and forth within the report, like maybe we should check the 1845 New York State Census. Oh, great idea. I'll do that, or something like that. So far, it's been working out great.
Yeah, it sounds great. And it does sound like the clients are getting the benefit of two sets of brains and two sets of eyes on that. So that it sounds really cool.
It also overcomes a little bit, sometimes being in business for yourself and being a sole proprietor can be a little bit lonely. And so it's nice to work with other researchers.
Many genealogists offer a wide array of services such as writing, speaking, and client reports. How did you determine what services that you wanted to offer to grow your business?
Well, I tried to focus on my strengths because I love researching and I love writing. I don't love speaking. So I didn't focus on speaking. A lot of people do, and I think it's a great technique to get your name out there and to get yourself known as an expert in your field. But I found it took tremendous preparation and it was stressful for me, so I didn't do a lot of it. I am trying to stretch a little bit and do some teaching and speaking right now that I've gained a little more confidence in the field. But I think basically I went with my strengths and I went with what I loved doing.
What were the services you offered when you first started, and how has that changed compared to what you're offering now?
I think I've both specialized and expanded. When I started out, I pretty much completely focused on Vermont research and also on making family history albums and family tree charts. And I learned that the problem with making the family history albums was I put so much time into them that I think I figured out I was making about $10 an hour. So I soon realized that wasn't really a profitable part of my business. So I sort of niched down in that respect to focusing more on client research, clients who have Vermont ancestors. But then over time, I also expanded because I became interested in the forensic research and I became interested in the Irish research. So I've expanded my focus there and moved a little bit away from exclusively doing Vermont research. I still do some occasional family tree charts, but I'm moving away from doing the books.
Now, you do several services that I would consider unique still at this point, even though a number of people are doing them, and that's the forensic work and the military repatriation work. Can you tell us a little bit about what's involved with the military repatriation projects that you do?
I really love doing that work. I do it through a company called SNA International, and they have a contract with the U.S. Army to do military repatriation. And our armed services are still actively searching for the remains of missing soldiers from World War II and the other 20th century wars. And some people are really surprised that we're still searching for the remains of our World War II soldiers. But the military takes the motto, "No one left behind," very seriously. So there's still a big push right now, especially with the development of DNA research that they didn't have 50 years ago or 60 years ago. So the Army gives me a file of a soldier whose remains were never recovered, and my job is to research the soldier's family tree with a goal of locating their living next of kin and family reference sample DNA donors. So if they do find remains of the soldiers, they can have a family reference sample to match to. So I need to find relatives who are eligible to donate mitochondrial DNA, Y-DNA, and autosomal DNA. And sometimes the soldier might have had a sister who had a daughter, and it's very easy, or the soldier might have a living sibling or a living child. And other times it can be really difficult, and it might involve researching back several generations. I might have to find, for example, the maternal grandmother's sisters, and then come back forward, researching down the line to find the grandmother's sister's daughter's children who are now living, so they would be eligible mitochondrial donors. Or it might be the same on the father's side to find, the grandfather's brother's son who can donate Y-DNA. And the very best part of the job is that I get to call the soldier's family when I find them to confirm that I found the right people and to let them know a little bit about the project, the military repatriation project. And I've just had some really wonderful conversations with family members about, their father, their brother, their uncle, whoever the soldier was. And I've found that these soldiers are still very much a living part of their family history, even though they were lost 60 years ago. And I've had some conversations that involve some tears, and other conversations where the family was just so excited to find out that the Army hadn't forgotten their uncle or their brother. And it's just been some really touching work. And I just feel incredibly privileged to be part of that work. And all the genealogists I know that do this seem to have that feeling in common of being very privileged to do that work and to speak to the families.
When you make that call to the families, is that before or after the DNA testing? Because I wasn't clear based on how you said that. Was that after you've confirmed with DNA that you found that they're relative?
No, it's when I've identified the family member. If I've researched down the line and I think I've found the name and address and phone number for, say, the soldier's brother or the soldier's niece or the soldier's first cousin 3 times removed or whoever it is that I'm researching, I call to make sure that is the person I think, that it's not someone with the same name or I haven't gone down the wrong line. Okay. So I confirm their relationship to the soldier and then tell them a little bit about the project. And then I turn my report into the Army and they take it from there. And I really don't know what happens after I turn my report in. But at some point, if they need to contact the family to do the DNA testing, that happens after it leaves me.
Okay, so you're really confident by the time you call that person that you found the right people and that the DNA is just used by the military to confirm it if they need it.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, the DNA is used to match if they're trying to find remains of, say, for example, they're doing some excavation work at the site of a plane crash. They may want to compare any remains they find to families of all the soldiers lost in the area so they can narrow down and make identifications of a soldier's remains and repatriate the remains. And they do a full military burial with full military honors and the family present and everything when they do positively identify the remains of a soldier. It's a lot of closure for families that have been waiting 60 years to find out what happened to their loved ones. I was really lucky that I was able to attend a family meeting that the military offered this summer in Washington, D.C., and meet some of the family members that are still waiting to hear about their loved ones. And there was one identification that was made in private to a wife who had lost her husband 60 years ago. And I was able to chat with her a little bit afterwards, and it was just amazingly touching to see how much it meant to her that her former husband's remains were found and that there was going to be closure and a burial for him.
Sounds like really wonderful work. Cathi, how do you balance your time between paid work and volunteering?
That's been a little bit of a challenge for me since I'm the new vice president of APG, the Association of Professional Genealogists. Sometimes I have a little bit of trouble saying no. I think I have a strong belief that if you belong to a group that is either all or mostly volunteer run, then you have an obligation to give back to that organization by taking on some sort of a volunteer role. And, that's why I decided after a lot of thought to accept the nomination to become vice president, because APG had done so much for me that I did want to give back to them. And it's also why I serve on the board of CAFG, the Council for the Advancement of Forensic Genealogy. But I also look at each volunteer opportunity and ask if it fits my strengths. In other words, do I really have something to offer this organization? And I also ask, does it fit with my business plan? And will it have also some benefits for my business as well? And probably the most important question is, will it be fun? Will I be working with people that I enjoy? Will I get to meet new people? Or will it just add more stress to my life? So it's a balancing act, and I might say yes more often than I need to, but I'm trying to get better at that.
What's the most fun project that you've ever worked on that you can share with us?
Well, I'm working on a forensic case right now, and I can't share too much about it, but it started out very small, and it grew. The family turned out to be very mobile, and it's grown to involve research in 12 foreign countries. And I'm subcontracting research in most of those countries, and I'm hiring certified translators for documents that are in 5 different languages so far. And it's a lot to manage, but I love it, and I'm learning so much with this project. So that's been a really fun project. And another fun case that I did not too long ago involved finding a client's ancestor's place of origin in Ireland, because she was planning a trip to Ireland and wanted to be able to visit the specific place that her ancestors came from. And it was so much fun to get a postcard from Ireland when she made it there.
Oh, that would be an awesome reward for a project. A real feeling of success. Let's take a quick break to hear a message from the Association of Professional Genealogists.
My name is Harold Henderson. I've been an APG member since 2007, and I serve on its board. You don't have to already be a professional to join APG. It's a great place to go when you are beginning to take genealogy more seriously and want to find others who do. There are plenty of chances to learn and ways to volunteer. My favorite is the members-only mailing list for sharing information and asking for help. Learn more about APG at www.apgen.org.
All right, Cathi, we are about to enter the lightning round. This is where I am going to bombard you with a whole bunch of rapid questions, and you're going to come back with brilliant answers that are going to help all the genealogists out there. Are you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Nothing like setting me up.
What was the one thing you were most afraid of in starting your business?
I was terrified of not having any clients. What would I do if the mortgage or the taxes were due and I had no money coming in to pay it? And it was really scary to think that everything depended on me. But I think that fear was healthy because it made me plan for that possibility. And
what is the best advice you've ever received?
Just put yourself out there. Get out in the field, meet your colleagues, attend institutes and other genealogy events. Don't be afraid of social media. It's all about networking and relationships. And I think I tend to be shy, more so. I used to be more shy than I am right now. So I think that was good advice, and it's really served me well.
What is one specific action listeners can take in the next 24 hours to help them transition into a genealogy career?
Write down your goals. Get them down on paper. Where do you want to be a year from now, 3 years from now? And then break down your goals into quarterly and then monthly and then weekly tasks. Draw yourself a map of how to get from where you are to where you want to be, and then just follow that map step by step and stick to the plan. This may sound a little contradictory, but also leave some room in the plan to allow for the wind to have some effect on the course you're setting also, and stay open to new possibilities and new ideas that cross your path, and adjust your plan as you need it. So don't be afraid to check out new things, but have a plan and a map and an overall destination in mind rather than just approaching your business in a scattered way.
Do you have a productivity tool or an app like Dropbox that you love and that you can share with the audience?
Well, I'm trying out some new productivity tools right now, and I've been really getting excited about an app called Harvest. It's a time tracking and invoicing tool, and genealogist Bethany Waterbury recommended this to me. And I'm usually pretty cheap, so I really haven't paid more than a couple of dollars for any time tracking tool before. And this one's a little bit more pricey, but so far I'm finding it's totally worth it, and it's giving me a lot of flexibility to track my time by tasks within tasks, and it's only taking me a couple of seconds to generate my invoices, and it allows the subcontractors I've started working with to track their time on the same projects with me, which has been fantastic, so we can both see how much time each other has in the project at any given time. And I'm also trying out a project management platform called Asana, ASANA, and that allows several people to collaborate on a project. And their tagline is teamwork without email. And since I already have way too much email, and I was finding that I was exchanging way too much email with my subcontractors, I'm hoping that it's going to end up being a platform we can collaborate without constantly sending emails back and forth to each other. And it's really great because it's free for teams of up to 15 people. And it's also helpful for a single user. So I still have a lot to learn about this app, but I'm excited about the possibilities so far.
What's your preferred social media channel?
Oh, I'm kind of addicted to Facebook. I play with Twitter a little bit now and then, and I did at the Professional Management Conference, but I love Facebook. All my genealogy friends are there, and it really helps cut down on the isolation of working alone. And also Google Hangouts. I love doing Google Hangouts with people because, again, it cuts down on the isolation of being frozen in up here in Vermont with temperatures, up to 17 below zero, and it can get pretty isolating. So I love Facebook and Google Hangouts.
Yeah, I just want to mention to everyone who's listening that where Cathi is in Vermont is very close to the Canadian border. You're right outside Burlington, right?
Yes, I'm probably about an hour from the border.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're well north.
I drive 4 hours each direction, almost 4 hours each direction, to attend the APG chapter meetings that are usually held around Boston or in New England, because it's just worth it to me to collaborate with my colleagues and see people and get out of Vermont.
And you attend more regularly than people who live only an hour away, including myself.
Well, the people that live only an hour away get to see other people all the time, and I don't. So it probably pays off more for me.
And we're going to try something different in this round, this lightning round, and that is to pick a particular aspect of genealogy business and talk about it a little bit. And so for this particular episode, I would like to discuss your website. And that is at stonehouseresearch.com. It's called Stonehouse Historical Research. Can you tell us a little bit about how your website came to be? And I'm going to be honest with the audience. I'm really opinionated when it comes to design and things like that. If you ever want an honest opinion, just call me because I will give you one. Cathi has a really good website. I like it. There are 2 points that I don't like, one I've shared with her, and the other one I will share after the interview. But I think her website is a really good role model for a successful genealogy website. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone go out and copy Cathi, because everybody needs to be unique. But Cathi, could you take a moment or two and tell us how this website came to be? Did you do this on your own? Did you get some help? Did you hire somebody to do it? And how did you select the photos and the content, the text?
Well, it's a good example of recognizing my strengths and weaknesses, because I'm not a website developer, and I decided that it would take me so long to learn how to do that those hours would be better invested in building my business and doing client research and pursuing education. So I did decide to hire someone to do my website, and it was a very, very good decision. I started by contacting some website development companies, and the costs were way beyond what I was able to spend at that point. I wasn't yet bringing any money into my business. But one of the companies said, we have a couple guys that work for us that do a little freelancing in their own time in the evenings. If you're interested in that, I could pass your name on to them. And I jumped at that opportunity. And one of the people who was just trying to get his own business started in website design was happy to do it at a price that was less than the big companies. And I think he did a fabulous job. And you can click through at the very bottom of my website to Black Wave Design to see some other work that he's done. It's set up so that I can edit it. I can edit parts of it, not the whole thing, which is a blessing and a curse because I don't have time. You might notice that there's a new tab that the developer set up for me called Research in Ireland, and he set it up so that then I could add a bunch of content to it myself, and it is sitting there saying under construction because I don't have time to work on it. So I probably need to hire out even more than what I did. But you asked about content. I did write all the content for it and gave it to the developer, and I had some ideas about what I wanted, but I also let him suggest some things to me, which were fantastic ideas that I never would have thought of. And he came up with the tagline that I use on the front of it. Most of the pictures, I purchased professional pictures, and that was something actually that you, Marion, recommended in the beginning. Don't use amateur photos. It really does change how the website looks. So I bought licenses to those photos. A couple of them are antique family photos of mine, but the rest were all professional photos.
That's great. Thank you. I think that really gives people a good sense of how you pulled that together.
I think that when you do start a website, it's important to remember to keep it up to date, and I haven't been as good at that as I should. So I really do need to revise it and keep it up to date and keep my blog up to date, which I haven't been doing either.
Yeah, that's one of the business aspects of running a genealogy business and any other type of business. How do you maintain these business pieces where your strength doesn't lie in that area, or you might have time constraints? So that's, one of the little tugs that you kind of have to deal with on an ongoing basis. And at some point, you'll work that out.
Well, I've started setting up a schedule where Wednesdays are my day to do business tasks, whether it's blogging, website, bookkeeping, whatever I need to do for my business that's not billable hours, not client work. I try to do all day on Wednesdays. And even if I have client projects nagging at me and hanging over my head, I try to be disciplined about doing business tasks all day Wednesday, because otherwise it gets away from me.
For your Research in Ireland page, that was the page that I told Cathi you shouldn't do that. Under construction. Don't put under construction.
I know, but there's no time.
Well, you can take half an hour one day, either put a picture of Ireland up or 3 links to sites that have Irish links, and take away the under construction. That's okay. That's what I would do. And then worry about fuller text later.
Well, my plan is eventually to start doing trips to Ireland to do client research, and I wanted to talk about that there, but I haven't had time to work out the details.
Give our audience one parting piece of advice, and then tell us how we can get in contact with you.
Take your business seriously. Prepare yourself well. I think a lot of genealogists don't put enough emphasis on the business side of it. Just be businesslike in all your actions and all your decisions, but also follow your heart. And you can reach me through my website that Marion already mentioned, stonehouseresearch.com. And you can find my blog there, or you can reach my blog directly at nostoneunturnedblog.com. My business Facebook page is facebook.com/Stonehouse Research. On Twitter, I'm at Cathi Desmarais, CATHIDESMARAIS, and my email address is stonehouseresearch@gmail.com.
And I will have links to all of those in the show notes for Cathy's episode, so you will not have to jot all those down and furiously. You can just go to thegenealogyprofessional.com and you'll find it there. Cathi Desmarais, thank you so much for coming on the Genealogy Professional podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
Cathi Desmarais' interview provides yet another great example of the variety of work that we do as genealogists. She talked about the meaningful work that she does doing military repatriation cases, and she also talked a bit about doing forensic genealogy cases, and also she's doing Vermont research and creating family photo albums, genealogical photo albums. Cathi also talked to us about planning her future and her education, specifically putting it down on paper and planning out what she was going to do. And this also included applying for certification. And another thing she talked about that was very important was relying on colleagues when confronting obstacles. And an interesting component that Cathi added that we don't normally hear about is how to collaborate with subcontractors. And Cathi had some really great suggestions in that arena. Before we go this week, we need to think about doing an action item, and we're going to get really, really practical this week. And I'm actually doing this more for me than for you because there's an area that I really need to work on, and why not do it together, right? So this week, we're going to focus on goal setting and to-do lists, really. Cathi talked about setting goals at the weekly, monthly, and quarterly time segments. I'd like to focus just on the weekly and on what we generally refer to as the to-do list. And what I would like you to do is perhaps at the end of your day today, sit down and determine what you need to accomplish, what tasks, what project work, whatever's on your to-do list, what do you need to accomplish in the next 7 days? And write that out. You can do it in a word processing program and type it out. You can write it on a piece of paper with a pen, but get it down so it's a list and prioritize it. You can put the most important stuff at the beginning. You could separate it by day, what you need to accomplish, and make sure you have a complete list. Now, there's one more aspect of this that I want you to follow up on. When I was working in real estate, I had a manager named Marcia Kramars, and one of the things she told me all the time, and this isn't original to her, she heard it from somewhere, but I don't know where she heard it, but what she would tell me is, do what you fear first. Do what you fear first. So you're going to make that list today, and then tomorrow morning, when you start your work week, you're going to print that list out. I want you to have a physical copy. I usually run on an electronic copy that I keep on my computer, but lately I found that I've been letting some of those things slide. So I am printing it out and putting it right next to my computer, and that's what I'm going to continue. I'm going to do this right along with you. Print out that list, put it right next to your computer, or put it on the wall next to your computer screen, and then when you get ready to start your day tomorrow morning, do that thing that you fear the most. What is the thing that you're procrastinating about? What is the thing that you don't like? Is it accounting? Is it updating your expenses? Things like that. Whatever it is that you don't really want to do that first and get it out of the way. So that's your action item for this week. Focus on creating that to-do list. Make a physical copy so that it is visually right next to you as you're working, and do what you fear first. Before I go, I'd like to give a shout out to a couple people who left reviews on iTunes. The first one is from Tessa Keogh, and Tessa writes, terrific resource for genealogists or anyone who is wondering about the business side of genealogy or any service-based business. The guests have been varied both by their niches and their locations, and there are always quite a few kernels of inspiration or information to help listeners learn and grow their passion. The action items provide that nudge many of us need to go from thinking about it to doing it. Marian asks great questions, and more importantly, she listens to her guests and is able to segue effortlessly into the unexpected areas they might take their responses. Well done. Thank you so much, Tessa. Really appreciate you stopping by and leaving that review for the Genealogy Professional Podcast. Tessa is a great supporter of the Genealogy Professional Podcast. She leaves comments on Google Plus quite a bit. And I just want you to know, Tessa, that I appreciate your support so much and all the comments. And you're just consistently there for me, and I really appreciate that. The next one is from Jamie Lee, and it says, anyone interested in becoming a professional genealogist or learning more about professional genealogists should listen to this podcast. I so much enjoyed learning about different genealogists and the paths they have taken. Marian's doing a great job. Thank you so much, Jamie. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, not just to listen to the podcast, but to come and leave a review for me. It's a huge help because it helps the show get a little bit better visibility in iTunes, and that really helps other people to learn about the show. So thank you for your support. Thank you for stopping by and leaving this review. Until next week, so long.